It was 8:45 a.m. on a crisp Monday in Detroit, and the assembly line at Apex Manufacturing had ground to a halt. Not with a bang or a screech, but with an eerie silence that echoed through the vast warehouse like a held breath. Sarah Klein stood in the parking lot, her thermos of black coffee steaming in the chill air, watching as shift supervisors paced frantically, their radios crackling with urgent pleas for updates. No trucks had rolled in that morning. Not the one from Midland Steel with the critical beams, nor the sealant delivery from Chempro, and certainly not the precision parts from Vanguard Machining. By 9:30, the production floor was a ghost town, workers clustered in groups, murmuring about unpaid overtime and wondering if this was some kind of drill. Sarah didn't move. She didn't need to. She'd seen this coming from a mile away, or rather, from 11 years of holding the invisible threads that kept this place alive. Sarah had started at Apex right out of community college, back when the company was just a mid-sized outfit churning out auto parts for the big three. Vendor relations wasn't glamorous, no corner office, no stock options that made headlines, but it was the backbone. She knew every clause in every contract like the lines on her palm. The 60-day notice for renewal with Midland burned into her memory after a near miss in 15 that cost them 6 figures in rush fees. Chempro's quirky requirement for a personal audit every quarter? She'd handled it herself, driving out to their plant in Ohio rain or shine. Vanguard's no-tolerance policy on late confirmations? She'd flagged it in emails that went unread by higher-ups more times than she could count. But Sarah didn't complain. She just did the work. Quietly, methodically, turning potential disasters into seamless operations. Then came Ethan Hale, fresh from a Silicon Valley stint, with his Ivy League MBA and a vocabulary full of buzzwords like disrupt and pivot. He strode into Apex like he owned the place. Which, in a way, he soon did as the new VP of Operations. Ethan was all smiles and handshakes at first, but Sarah saw the calculation in his eyes, the way he scanned rooms for inefficiencies, for people he deemed replaceable. In his first all-hands meeting, he laid it out. We're streamlining, automating. No more manual babysitting of vendors. AI can handle the grunt work, freeing us up for innovation. The room applauded. Sarah sat in the back, her notebook open, jotting down the vendors whose contracts explicitly forbade automated renewals. She didn't say a word. It started small. Ethan reassigned vendor ops under his direct purview, calling it a consolidation for synergy. Sarah's team of 3 was dissolved. Her assistants moved to other departments, leaving her as the lone holdout. In a one-on-one that felt more like an interrogation, he leaned back in his ergonomic chair and said, "Sarah, you've been here forever. That's great loyalty. But we need scalable solutions. This manual tracking? It's legacy. Archaic." She nodded, her face neutral. "I've built redundancies," she replied softly. "Some vendors require human confirmation. No bots." He waved it off with a chuckle. "Vendors want our business. They'll adapt." That was his mantra. Adapt or die. But Sarah knew better. Vendors weren't algorithms. They were people with memories of slights and expectations of respect. She didn't fight it. Instead, she documented everything. Every email she sent to procurement about upcoming expirations. Every memo to legal highlighting non-negotiable clauses. She CC'd Ethan on a few, watching as they sat unread in his inbox. Then, one Friday afternoon, he called her into a conference room with HR in tow. "We're right-sizing," he said, avoiding her eyes. "Your role's being phased into the new system. We'll offer a severance. Generous. Considering." Considering what? The 11 years she'd poured into this place? The weekends spent negotiating extensions during strikes? She signed the papers without a fuss. packed her desk into a single box, her favorite stress ball, a framed photo from the 18 Supplier Summit, and a USB drive with her personal archives. As she walked out, the security guard nodded sympathetically. "Gonna miss your coffee runs, Sarah?" She smiled faintly. "They'll miss more than that." The first crack appeared that weekend. Sarah was at home in her modest bungalow in the suburbs, sipping tea on her porch, when her phone buzzed with a text from an old colleague. "Midland's renewal, did we confirm?" She stared at the screen, then powered off her phone. No more. She'd stopped the automated reminders in her last week. The ones she'd set up in a shadow system no one else accessed. The pings to Ethan's team about Kempro's audit? Disabled. The courtesy calls to Vanguard? She hadn't made them. And now no one would. It wasn't sabotage. It was simply
stopping.
Letting the contracts run their course. As written. The rules she'd enforced for years would now enforce themselves. By Monday morning, as she watched from afar, she drove by the plant out of curiosity. The chaos was unfolding. Ethan was probably in his office, barking orders into his phone, demanding to know why the lines were down. But Sarah knew. Midland had lapsed at midnight Sunday, their contract auto-terminating without written affirmation. Kempro, sensing the silence, had held shipments pending review. Vanguard? They'd sent a curt email at dawn. No active agreement. Deliveries suspended. The dominoes were falling. And Ethan, with his fancy dashboards, hadn't even seen them lined up. As the sun climbed higher, Sarah finished her coffee and drove away, a quiet satisfaction settling in her chest. This wasn't revenge, it was revelation. They'd learn soon enough what legacy really meant. The war room at Apex was a frenzy by noon. Ethan paced the length of the conference table, his tie askew, sleeves rolled up like he was ready to wrestle the problem into submission. Screens flickered with spreadsheets and vendor portals. But every login attempt to the old tracking system bounced back with access denied. Sarah's final, silent act before leaving. "What do you mean?" "Lapsed?" He snapped at the procurement lead, a young guy named Mike who'd been promoted too fast. Mike stammered. "The contracts. They require manual renewal notices. We thought the AI would flag them." But Ethan cut him off. "AI doesn't flag what isn't programmed." Who handled the programming? Silence. Sarah had. She'd built the entire ecosystem from scratch, layering in custom alerts that no off-the-shelf software could replicate. Outside, the parking lot filled with idled trucks from secondary suppliers. But without the core materials, it was pointless. Workers milled about, some heading home early, grumbling about lost wages. The plant manager, a grizzled vet named Tom, cornered Ethan in the hall. "This ain't a glitch,
kid.
This is a shutdown. We got orders piling up for Ford. Miss this? And we're blacklisted." Ethan's face paled, but he rallied with his go-to optimism. "We'll renegotiate. Call them. Offer premiums." Tom shook his head. "You don't get it. These aren't apps you update." Sarah knew their people, knew when to call, what to say. Without her, we're strangers begging. Sarah,
meanwhile,
was at a coffee shop across town, scrolling through her personal emails. She'd archived everything, the ignored warnings, the memos stamped low priority by legal. One from 3 weeks back stood out, her note to Ethan about Vanguard's 45-day window. Critical, confirm in writing or risk termination. His reply? Noted. AI on it. But the AI wasn't trained on the nuances, the side agreements she'd negotiated over lunches. The trust built from years of reliability. She sipped her latte, feeling the tension she'd held for months start to uncoil. It wasn't glee. It was a deep, weary vindication. For 11 years, she'd been the unseen force, The one who remembered that Kempro's CEO had a soft spot for handwritten notes, or that Midland's logistics had needed flexibility during hurricane season. By afternoon, the calls started. First from legal, a polite voicemail asking for clarity on legacy protocols. Sarah let it go to voicemail. Then Mike texted, "Hey, quick question on renewals." Ignored. Ethan himself emailed at 2:15. "Sarah, appreciate any insights you can share."
Urgent.
She read it, then archived it alongside the others. Why respond? They'd made their choice. Now they lived with it. As the day wore on, the shutdown rippled outward. Suppliers who'd been loyal to Apex began fielding calls from competitors, whispering about the sudden radio silence. One vendor rep, an old contact of Sarah's, messaged her directly. "Heard about the mess. You okay?" She replied simply, "Better than ever." Ethan called an emergency meeting at 4 p.m. The room was packed, finance crunching numbers on lost production, ops outlining contingency plans that sounded more like wishful thinking. "We can source alternatives," Ethan declared, projecting a slide of potential vendors. But legal chimed in. "Half these contracts have exclusivity clauses. Breaching them triggers penalties, up to 7 figures. The air grew thick with unspoken blame. Someone muttered, "Sarah would have caught this." Ethan shot them a glare. But inside, doubt gnawed. He dismissed her as admin overhead, a relic in his vision of a sleek, automated future. Now that future was crumbling, exposed as a house of cards without her foundation. That evening, as Sarah cooked dinner in her kitchen, pasta with sauce from scratch, a ritual of normalcy, the news trickled in via group chats from former colleagues. "Plants dark tomorrow." Ethan's freaking. She set her phone down, the weight of it all settling like dust after a storm. It wasn't about destruction. It was about value. They'd undervalued her. And now the cost was tallied in real time. The next day dawned with more silence. No hum of machinery, just the echo of empty bays. Ethan arrived early, dark circles under his eyes, poring over printouts of Sarah's old dashboards, snippets pulled from shared drives, incomplete without her annotations. He tried calling vendors himself, but the responses were chilly. "We'll discuss once protocols are met." One hung up mid-sentence. Tom's words echoed, strangers begging. By mid-morning, the CEO, a no-nonsense woman named Carla, who'd built Apex from the ground up, stormed in from a business trip. "What the hell happened?" she demanded in the boardroom. Ethan presented his case. "A transition hiccup. We're pivoting to new systems." Carla's eyes narrowed. "Hiccup? We're hemorrhaging millions." "Who dropped the ball?" Fingers pointed subtly toward the empty chair where Sarah once sat. As Carla dug deeper, pulling up emails and logs, the picture clarified. Sarah's warnings, ignored. Her systems, dismantled. She was the glue, legal admitted quietly. Ethan swallowed hard, realizing too late that his optimization had optimized out the human element, the intuition, the relationships that no AI could replace. Carla didn't waste time on platitudes. She called Sarah directly at 10:47 a.m., her voice steady but edged with urgency. "Sarah, it's Carla. We need to talk." Sarah, walking her dog in the park, paused under a canopy of turning leaves. The autumn air was crisp, a far cry from the stuffy plan offices. "I'm listening," she said evenly. Carla laid it out, the shutdowns, the penalties looming, the vendors stonewalling. "We undervalued you. Come back. Name your terms." Sarah let the silence stretch, the rustle of leaves filling the gap. "It's not about terms,
Carla."
it's about respect." She hung up, her heart pounding not with anger, but with a quiet power she'd never fully claimed before. Back at Apex, the crisis escalated. Finance projected Q1 losses at $12 million if deliveries didn't resume by week's end. Ops scrambled for temp suppliers. But compliance regs blocked half the options. Sarah had navigated those mazes effortlessly. Ethan sat in his office, staring at his screen, replaying the dismissal meeting. He'd called her role redundant, but now redundancy screamed from every stalled line. A knock at the door. Mike, looking sheepish. Vendors are asking for you by name. Wait.
No.
For Sarah. Ethan rubbed his temples. Tell them we're handling it. But they weren't. One vendor, from Kempro, emailed directly to the board, resuming only with original liaison reinstated. Sarah spent the afternoon at home, sorting through job offers that had trickled in over the weeks. One stood out, from Riverton Industries, Apex's main rival downstate. Their COO had reached out personally, heard about the shakeup. We value experience like yours. Let's talk. She'd met him at a conference years back. He'd remembered her name. Her insights on supply chain resilience. Unlike Ethan, he didn't talk automation, he talked partnership. By evening, she'd accepted a virtual interview. Her resume polished with the quiet achievements Apex had overlooked. The board convened at dusk. Lights low in the executive suite. Carla presented the damage. 28 contracts in limbo. 14 fully terminated. This isn't a tech fail, she said. It's a people fail. Eyes turned to Ethan, who defended weakly. Modernization requires tough calls. But Carla cut deep. Tough calls need wisdom, not arrogance. The room hummed with tension, the kind that builds like a storm front.
Outside,
the plant lot was empty, a skeletal reminder of what hubris could rot. Sarah's phone buzzed again that night. Ethan this time. His message pleading, "Can we meet? Fix this."
she didn't respond.
Instead, she drafted her acceptance to Riverton, Director of Supply Chain Integrity. The title fit like a glove, acknowledging what Apex never had, her integrity as the key to it all. Wednesday brought the explosion. Media caught wind. A local business journal ran a piece on Apex's supply chain meltdown. Stocks dipped 8%. Vendors, emboldened, issued formal breach notices, demanding compensation for halted prep. Ethan fielded calls from investors, his voice cracking under the strain. Temporary setback, he assured. But the lie tasted bitter. Carla pulled him aside. Resign, or I'll fire you. He balked. But the writing was on the wall. His vision had blinded them all. Sarah, now officially with Riverton, watched from her new office the next day, a corner space with a view, not a cubicle in the shadows. Her first task, auditing their vendors. She smiled faintly, importing her personal templates, the ones that had saved Apex countless times. Word spread quickly. Old suppliers reached out, eager to reconnect. Glad you're somewhere that appreciates you, one said. At Apex, the cleanup began without her. Temp fixes patched some holes, but the trust was shattered. Carla reflected in a late-night email to the board. We lost more than an employee. We lost our anchor. The plant hummed partially by Friday, but the scars lingered, higher costs, wary partners, a lesson etched in red ink. Riverton's integration was seamless. Sarah's arrival was announced internally with fanfare, welcoming our new director, bringing proven expertise in vendor stability. No buzzwords, just respect. Her first meeting with the team felt like coming home. They listened as she outlined protocols, nodding at the human touches she'd honed over years. Automation aids, but relationships endure, she said, and they agreed. By week's end, she'd reactivated dormant ties with suppliers who'd soured on Apex, steering business Riverton's way. It wasn't poaching, it was natural migration to reliability. Back at Apex, Ethan's exit was quiet, a memo at dawn, stepping down to pursue other opportunities.
No cake. No speeches.
The void he left was filled by an interim from ops. But the damage tallied, $22 million in Q2 projections, plus reputational hits. Carla initiated a full review, uncovering Sarah's archived warnings like buried treasure or landmines, depending on the view. "How did we miss this?" she asked in a tense huddle. The answer: complacency. They'd assumed silence meant smoothness, not the hum of vigilant effort. Sarah fielded a final call from Carla weeks later. "Riverton's bid for our overflow work. Your handiwork?" Sarah paused, the line crackling with unspoken history. "Business is business." Carla sighed. "We deserved this." The conversation ended cordially, but the bridge was burned. Riverton thrived, their lines buzzing with the efficiency Sarah brought, her memory the secret sauce no algorithm could bottle. Months passed, the incident fading into corporate lore at Apex, a cautionary tale whispered in break rooms. Remember when they let Sarah go? New hires were trained on human oversight protocols, a fancy term for what she'd done instinctively. Ethan surfaced on LinkedIn, touting consulting gigs and operational transformation, but his posts garnered few likes. The sting of failure clinging like smoke. Sarah, thriving at Riverton, reflected on quiet evenings. She'd never sought the spotlight, but in its absence, she'd proven its necessity. The mouth won, hubris versus humility, played out not in shouts, but in the quiet unraveling of systems taken for granted. Years later, at an industry conference in Chicago, Sarah spotted Ethan across the room. He looked older, his confidence tempered. Their eyes met. He approached hesitantly.
"Sarah.
Heard you're killing it at Riverton." She nodded, a polite smile. "Lessons learned." He chuckled ruefully. "Plenty." Underestimated the human factor. They parted amicably, but the encounter lingered, a reminder that some breaks can't be automated away. Apex recovered. Sort of. New leadership emphasized balance, tech with touch. But the ethos shifted. Employees felt seen, or, at least, feared being unseen. Sarah's legacy? Not destruction, but awakening. In the end, was it fair? Did ego deserve such a fall? Or was silence the sharpest blade? The questions hung, unanswered, in the hum of restored machines.